I will say that if you're not familiar with my style, and there are a whole bunch of new folks, some who have seen me present in the last couple of months, I talk as quickly as I possibly can so that I can get you as much good information as I possibly can. I am a blend of storyteller, snark master, and compassionate listener. So you're going to get all of that. I also have a tendency, as I get warmed up and feel like I'm talking to friends, I can swear a little bit. So if I offend you, I apologize from the depths of my heart. It's just part of my personality. It's not meant to be shocking or anything. I've been this way forever, including when I was raising my children, which is why none of them swore when they were young children, because I took the thrill out of it. So we're going to talk about the agenda real quick, do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we're going to dive in for an hour. At the end of that hour, Nicole has going to have gathered all the questions that you've been sending in, and I'm going to spend 30 minutes answering them. Then you're going to get a link that will give you the recording options, and we're going to open up that Facebook group. So that is a place for you to post throughout the week about homework assignments, about the exercises, about what you're learning about yourself, about the challenges that you're running into. And I monitor that group every single day, several times a day. So you won't have to wait long for a response from me. And those responses could be anything from, wow, this is a great question, I'll answer it next week because I'm sure other parents have it, to let's jump on the phone for a quick 5 minute. I think this sounds very personal, to my responding immediately. So I will do my best to make sure that you have as many updates as you possibly can. Let me minimize this for just a minute and turn my mail off, which I'd done, but it didn't work. So there we go. Okay. So housekeeping really is, as much as possible, give yourself this 90 minutes to dive in, to clear your brain, to open up to new possibilities. If you're multitasking, your brain is not going to be able to absorb all of the information, and there is a lot of information that I'm going to throw at you. Make sure you have a pen, create a kind of journal for yourself so that you can write about your experience, the things that are changing, the things that you're noticing, the words that you hear that jump out of you, or the phrases that you hear, or a metaphor that I share. All of those things you are now creating a repertoire of tools to use going forward. So it goes beyond this hour together, and hopefully I'm sharing things that you're going to be able to incorporate into your parenting going forward. We're going to start right at 9, and I'm going to get you out of here at the 10:30 mark so that you can get back to your lives. And again, if you have any questions throughout, please let Nicole know. That's why she's monitoring and facilitating this course, so that I can focus on one thing. So today we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about mindset, because here's what I know. When parents sign up for a course, or they're listening to a podcast, or they're buying a book, what they want is a strategy. They want a solution to the problem that they are having, and they want it right now. And that's great. Who doesn't want a solution immediately to a problem they're having? But here's what I know, and maybe you've had this experience. You have this challenge with your kid, and you see your neighbor, and they seem to have a kid who kind of does the same thing, but their kid is getting better. They're not doing it so much. And so you say to your friend, hey, what are you doing? Because looks like you're making improvements. And the friend is like, oh, let me share with you what I'm doing. And they do. And you go home and you try it. Doesn't work. And then you read a book and you try another strategy, and it doesn't work. And then you listen to a podcast. Doesn't work. Here's what parents first of all, nobody's ever told us this. No matter how good the strategy is, if your mindset hasn't changed, that strategy isn't going to work any better than the one before that, and the one before that, and the one before that, and the one after that, after that, and after that. Your mindset is in charge of everything. So before you spend money, time, energy, get your little stickers out, make your new spinning wheel, forget it. Put it on hold, because it will not make any difference at all if you have not challenged your thinking when it comes to your parenting. The second thing is, if you don't have a long-term plan for parenting, you're doing what I call Band-Aid parenting. You're putting a Band-Aid over a hot spot, and you're hoping that it's going to work. But it's like putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound. It is not going to stop the bleeding, and the wound is never going to heal. So we need to slow that process down and look at all the clutter in our heads. We have to shake out the cobwebs. We have to challenge our thinking. We have to re-examine why we have some of the beliefs that we have about parenting so that we can be clearer about what's really going on in our children's lives and the way that we're responding to them based on this old thinking. Now, what's really important to remember is that most of our ideas about parenting, who we would be as parents, were created somewhere between the ages of 10 and 15. We look around our families and we say to ourselves, wow, I really love this about my family. When I get to be a parent, I want to do it just like this. More often than not, we look around our family and we say, this is really distasteful. I don't like this. I'm not going to do this. And we store that away. And then we kind of close the box on, here's what I want to do when I become a parent. And we don't open that box again until we have kids. So you were somewhere between the ages of 10 and 15 when you made those decisions. And now here you are, an adult with a child. And this is the second time that you're opening that box and looking. So we want to start to really examine some of those decisions, and we want to update them and challenge them and look at new information and create a plan that best represents who we are as human beings, the values that we hold dear, our preferences, our perspectives, our rhythms, as well as our children. So in some ways, we're really starting over, but nobody tells us that until we've grabbed a hold of the decisions we made as kids and we've started to implement them in today's parenting. And guess what? Oftentimes it doesn't work. So we're going to spend some time looking at the impact of those beliefs that we created early on and what we can do to update them. Then we're going to talk about the Do Nothing, Say Nothing week, which is the weekly challenge, which is part of what duct tape is known for, is this Do Nothing, Say Nothing week, and why this is such a powerful exercise for parents. And then we're going to talk about 3 relationship strategies that you're going to start to implement this week so that you can begin to improve the relationship with your kids immediately. All right. So having said that, we are going to start with creating a learner's mindset. And you all have these handouts. So if you grab this first one, we're going to work our way through it. So when I was a young parent, I thought I was doing a pretty good job. I had decided that this approach to parenting was something that really resonated with me. I believed in it. I thought that I could do it full time as a mom, with whether I had a 2-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 22-year-old. It was about human relationships. And that meant that it was something I could really bite into. I didn't have to update it every time my kids went through a new phase or our situation changed. And I was like, I don't want to deal with any of that. I need an approach to parenting that will grow with my kids, grow with my family, and will be relevant no matter how the situation changes in our lives. But something happened when my middle child was 4 years old, and we had baked cookies together. And we put all the cookies out to cool, and we said, okay, cookies are for after dinner. So we'll let them cool, and after we eat, we'll all have some cookies. Great. And off I went to do something. And I came back in the kitchen, and there was my 4-year-old, and she had a little chocolate chip right here. And I looked at her and I said, did you eat a cookie? And my 4-year-old looked at me and went, no. And I blew a gasket. I looked at her and said, you did eat a cookie. You have chocolate chip right there on your mouth. Now, I knew at this moment I was headed towards hell, but I had no idea why it was happening, and I could not have stopped it for the life of me. So first I called her out on the fact that, yeah, you did eat the cookie, and I've got this face that would have scared the devil, I suspect. And then I said, we do not lie in this family. Do you hear me? We are not lying. The face of this 4-year-old is now terror, fear. What is happening here? Who is this woman standing in front of me that I don't recognize, who has never spoken to me like this before, and who is scaring the crap out of me? And in all of my wisdom, the best thing I could think of to do was send her away to her room to think about what she had done. And I thought to myself, this is bad. Like, what is that? Like, what just happened to me? And then luckily 2 weeks later, I went to a conference and I learned about the ABCDE method. And it was a game changer for me. A, fill this out with me, is the activating event. An activating event is something that triggers you immediately and deeply and gets you into crisis mode in a split second. Oftentimes, you are surprised that you are reacting this way if it's the first time it's happened. If it's the 20th time you've happened, you still feel completely unable to control the reaction that you have to the thing that your child is doing. So right now, write down what that activating could be. Some of you, it's going to be an immediate response. You know exactly what that activating event is because it's either happened just recently or it's happening over and over again, and you still find yourself like completely perplexed and overreacting to it. All right. Mine was lying. That I had a mistaken belief. That was the activating event. Children who lie. Okay. So number 2 is, what do I believe about children who lie? And what do I believe about the parents who raised them? So I was raised in a very strict Catholic upbringing. And I heard from the time I was out of the womb that if you lie, you go to hell. Okay. That was my belief system. I didn't know that until I had a child who lied to me. And that belief got activated. So when Zoe said to me, no, the first thing I thought was, that girl is going to hell, which was bad in and of itself. But what was worse was, and I, as the mother of a child who is lying, is also going to hell. And as a Catholic, Reformed Catholic at this point in my life, even as a Reformed Catholic, I decided in that split second, I am not going to hell because my 4-year-old lied. I've got to do something about that. I've got to make sure that kid knows it is not ever okay to lie, or both of us are going to hell, and I'm not going to hell. Okay, that was the thinking going on in my head. Now, when I say it out loud 20 years later, I know I sound like a lunatic, but at the moment, I was completely confused and I was scared about what was happening to me. So write down right now what you believe about a child who does whatever the activating event was, and what you believe about the parent who is raising that child. So it could be anything from a child who lies, a child who says, I hate you, a child who steals, a child who tattles all the time, 2 siblings who don't get along, a child who gets an F on a paper. It doesn't matter how silly it might sound intellectually. If that is an activating event for you, then it is very real, and you want to grab a hold of that and write down, what do I believe about children who do this, and what do I believe about the parents who do this, right? Now, the third part, the C, is the consequence to that belief. So in my case, the consequence to myself for overreacting is that I'm ashamed of myself. I'm humiliated for the way I spoke to my child. I feel sad for my child and for myself. I'm confused about what's going on. I want to feel better. So I'm completely out of sorts emotionally with myself. So that's the consequence I pay. I'm judging myself. I'm criticizing myself. I'm confused. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm whatever. Imagine what the consequence to my child is after my reaction. Imagine what is happening for her, having an out-of-control mother who is screaming and yelling and making her feel worse and sending her off to her room to do what? Ponder what a horrible child she is because she lied and she doesn't know who her mother is. So that's the consequence to the child as a result of our response. So write down the consequence that you feel as a parent who overreacts in those moments, and the consequence to your child. Do they start to fear you? Do they start to talk less to you? Do they start to sneak? Do they escalate the negative behavior? Like, what is the impact? What is the consequence of your reaction to that belief? And that is generally where we get stuck, right there. We feel bad, we apologize, we try and make amends, but nothing changes. Everything remains the same. And that is part of why clearing the clutter is so important. D in this exercise is called disputation. And disputation is about rewriting the story. It's about thinking about it logically as an adult and saying to yourself, all right, Vicki, remember that time your youngest son came home from trick-or-treating and he had a basket full of little Butterfinger bars, which are your favorite, and you said to the kids, all right, everybody take your candy up to your room. The kids all said, no sneaking, Mom. I looked at them and said, why would I eat your candy? I can go to the store and buy a bag of candy for myself. But at 10 o'clock that night, when everybody was asleep, I snuck into my son's room and I took 2 little Butterfinger bars and I ate them. And in the morning, he came out with a look on his face that would suggest that he had counted the Butterfinger bars before he went to bed. And he looked at me and said, did you eat my Butterfinger bars? And I looked at him and said, no. And then I said, yes, I did. And I thought to myself, right, sometimes people lie. They don't mean to lie. They lie for all kinds of different reasons. They lie because they're afraid of getting scared. They lie because they don't know how the person is going to take the information. They lie because any multitude of reasons, but not because they're inherently wrong. Mostly because in that moment, we lack the courage to tell the truth. And that's what happens for kids. Most of the time, an activating event from a child has something more to do with the fact that they lack courage, or they don't know what else to do, or they think the worst case scenario will happen, rather than they're intrinsically bad and they need to be corrected. So my disputation, my news story was, sometimes people have a hard time telling the truth. It doesn't say anything about who they really are. It means in this situation, they lack the courage to tell the truth. And it is reasonable to think that a 4-year-old who's looking at the face of a mother who is distraught would think it's safer to tell a lie than to tell the truth. So if I can create this story that's more grounded in reality, I'm going to stop reacting, and then I can do what I know I'm supposed to do, which is to help Zoe find the courage to tell the truth, even if it means that she might get punished, or there will be a consequence, or the outcome will be something other than a positive one. That's where I'm going to put my focus, not on trying to make her feel bad, but on trying to teach her and to help instill a sense of courage so she doesn't have to. I want to suggest that when you do this exercise, you write the story down for the disputation. Because what I know is this: the parents who take the time to write things down and read them out loud have a much faster rate of change and improvement than the parents who just go, oh yeah, I did that exercise in my head. It's like, yeah, okay, that exercise is gone in 30 seconds when you start working on your shopping list. This is serious business. These are beliefs that are carved deep into our thinking that take a long time to flush out. But they are the major cause of much of the disruption in our families today, are these mistaken beliefs about children who are rude, and children who don't say please and thank you, children who won't brush their teeth, and children who don't. Like, we have so many of them that impact our parenting decisions, and we don't take the time to shake it up and say, is this a reasonable belief I have about children who don't say please and thank you? Like, where did that come from, and why am I being crazy about it? And is it really worth ruining the relationship with my child to make this point over and over again? All right. So disputation is kind of like unlocking the door to a jail cell and saying to yourself, wait a minute, I can look at this differently. I can update my thinking. I have a new perspective that's going to foster a better relationship and hopefully teach my child something that they can use moving forward. And then E is encouragement. Instead of beating myself up and telling on myself and extending the drama of the story, I quickly said to myself, wow, I learned a lot about myself today. And it's hard to look in the mirror and think that that was a belief that I was carrying around with me. But I have a new story now, and I'm going to go apologize to my child, and I'm going to take full responsibility for the fact that I'm out of control. And I'm going to ask my children to help me do better at updating this belief system so that they are never afraid to tell me the truth. And then I went in and talked to Zoe, and I encouraged her, and I apologized to her, and I acknowledged that she must have been incredibly scared. And I acknowledged that when there are warm chocolate chip cookies, it takes an enormous amount of self-control not to just sneak one in your mouth. And as a little kid, I'm sure I did the same thing on any number of occasions, and maybe I got caught and maybe I didn't. So encouragement is about not just saying I'm sorry, but really taking the time to clean things up, to make everybody feel better, to kind of set the stage anew so that you can move forward. So here's the power of this one little exercise that will open the prison gates on so much of the thinking that gets you into trouble. We taught our kids about this strategy so that they could help us do better. But through the years, things popped up that I couldn't have guessed would be triggering events, activating events until, and this is an example. So my oldest daughter gets her driver's license at 16, and she's done everything she's supposed to do. She's bought a car, she's paid for the car, she's got insurance, she's taken the classes, she passed her driver's test, flying colors. She comes home, she's like, I passed, I'm gonna get the keys, I'm gonna go for a drive. And I looked at her and I said, you're not driving. And she looked at me and said, excuse me? I said, I don't know where you got the idea that you were getting behind the wheel of a car. She goes, well, I'm 16, I passed my license, I have a car, I'm driving. And I was like, no, you're not. Now, I knew when I was saying it that I had gone crazy, but I couldn't stop myself because that belief was grounded in an experience. But my daughter, who was now savvy to this exercise, looked at me and said, hey, Mom, do you have a mistaken belief about 16-year-old girls who drive cars? And I went, why, yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I have a mistaken belief based on my own driving experience as a 16-year-old girl. And I did a lot of things in our Volkswagen bus, and much of the time it had nothing to do with driving. So yes, and she said to me, so what new story do we have to write together in order for you to feel good about me being an independent driver? Now, imagine if I did not have that clarity, what I might have done to the relationship with this 16-year-old girl. I would have made up excuses for her not to be able to drive. I would have said, well, you didn't get straight A's. Well, you were rude to me and your dad. Well, you were nasty to your brother. Well, you didn't pick up your clothes when I asked you to, so no, you can't drive. I would have put all these contingencies on it because I didn't understand what was happening to me. This is how we muck things up with our kids. And we have mistaken beliefs that are activated on all kinds of things. If you want to get a clear picture of what's going on in your house, this is one of the most powerful exercises that you can do throughout your child's lifetime to keep you clear on what's important, why it's important, and how you're going to address it. Does that make sense to everybody? Give Nicole either a thumbs up, a thumbs down, a comment, something that makes sense. You've already had like something pop into your head, you suddenly understand why you and your kid keep doing this about this certain situation or event or challenge, so that I know this is landing for you. So your homework this week is to identify at least 2 mistaken beliefs you have and then to rewrite that story. And what I want you to do, what I'm going to encourage you to do, is post that in the Facebook group, because as we share these stories, people go, oh my God, I have that same belief, but I didn't know it until I read your story, and mine is very similar. Now I can go back and think about what I want to do differently, okay? So take some time this week over the course of the 7 days and identify 2. And if you have more than one child, oftentimes different children will activate different things. So take a look at that and write down as many, but at least 2. Okay. All right. Any questions so far about this particular strategy and clearing the clutter? The other thing I'm going to say right now is if you haven't, oh good, everyone's okay. If you haven't read Carol Dweck's book on mindset, get it, read it, underline it, and then read it and listen to it again. Yes, it can be a little bit redundant, but it is such a huge concept that it's worth repeating it over and over again until it really settles in. This can be a game changer for a lot of parents who have a fixed mindset rather than a growth mindset, a learner's mindset. And as parents, it is imperative that we keep a learner's mindset when we're raising our kids. It is not helpful to our kids for us to have a fixed mindset of it's Carol Dweck, D-W-E-C-K. The book is called Mindset. It's been on the bestseller list for 5 years, I think, or something like that. It behooves us to model for our children that we are always learning. This is a great way to teach vulnerability, to teach becoming a lifelong learner, to talk to kids about your own frustration when you're learning something new, to teach them about carving out time to read something that's going to make your life better. So we have to be modeling the kind of life we want our children to be exposed to. And if we want them to be lifetime learners, they have to see us in that same messy process. What we tend to do as parents is convey the message that we have all the answers to all the problems, and we don't have to learn anything new because that's all done. And the message we send to our kids is that there is a certain age in which you stop learning and growing and being surprised and making mistakes, and that just isn't true. So remember that you're always modeling something for your kids. So be asking yourself, get in the habit of asking yourself, what am I modeling right now? Am I modeling compassion, or am I modeling judgment? Am I modeling flexibility, or am I modeling being rigid? Am I modeling compromising, or am I modeling getting my own way and being right? So in every moment, we're either enhancing the relationship we have with our kids, or we're interfering with it. And that oftentimes is based on these beliefs that we have that go unchecked. All right. So keep that learner's mindset and challenge any thoughts you have that you think, I don't understand where this came from, and I'm not sure that it's a thought that is adding value to the family. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the do nothing, say nothing. This is my favorite. So let me tell you the story because it's true, and it'll help because you'll know I'm in the same boat, which I think is important. So I was rolling along with this great approach to parenting, and things were going really well. And then I found myself single with 3 small children under the age of 7 in Vermont with 3 horses on a 20-acre parcel of land and no family. And I started to panic a little bit. I lost my confidence. And in doing so, I started to talk a lot at my children. And I watched a family who had really easy mornings fall apart and turn into chaos for one reason and one reason only. I started to indulge my mouth. I started to feel like I had to be in control of the morning routine, despite the fact that we had been managing it quite nicely for a few years. And so I started to talk about everything. My mouth just started to go. Are you up? We have to leave in 10 minutes. We still have to go feed the horses. Where are your boots? It's 20 degrees below zero. Please sit down and eat. No, that's not enough. You had too much of this. And even as I was talking, I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? You can see your kids are like, I'm trying to say, well, you have to go do this. And the kid's like, I was going to go do that, but now I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I was interrupting their flow because I thought, well, maybe I can do it better. Maybe I can do it faster. Maybe I'll make sure that nobody forgets their lunch and there's no crying in the car. Despite the fact that we had months and months and months of great mornings with my mouth shut. But the situation changed and I lost my confidence. And so I started to talk. And my kids started to cry more. And I noticed there was more fighting. And they weren't as snuggly with me at the end of the day. And I thought, what's changed? This has changed. This is going all the time with direction, talking at them, multitasking. It was chaos. So I thought, if this is the problem, then I have to stop this. How am I going to stop it? Because I have no self-control. Come on, I'm not going to stop talking. So I went to the workshop and I got duct tape. First, I was looking at the vice grips. I thought, no, I'm not vice gripping my mouth together. This is a true story, you guys. This is how serious I was. So I got duct tape. And I put duct tape on the counter, and I thought, the next time I am tempted to open my mouth. I'm putting duct tape on my mouth. So on it goes. A couple of things happened. The first was my brain short-circuited. When you can't talk, your brain, all of the fear, all the craziness, all the monkey chatter comes to the surface, and you realize just how unreliable and crazy your thoughts are. Because my thoughts included, oh my God, they're going to choke on that Captain Crunch. She's going to freeze to death because she won't put her boots on. The horses will, like, within seconds, there was this like of worst case scenarios. They won't brush their teeth for a week and their teeth will fall out. I'll get a call from the school because they haven't had their lunches and they're going to send child protective services over. They won't go to bed on time if I'm not telling them what time they have to get up. They're all going to oversleep. And the more my brain played out all the things that might happen because I wasn't orchestrating life with the crazier I got. Like, whoa, these thoughts are out of control. These thoughts are what's influencing my parenting decisions. And they're crazy thoughts. They're all based on worst case scenarios. Like, why do I think so little of my children? Where did I get this idea that they're going to choke on Captain Crunch and they can't figure out to put shoes on in a snow blizzard? And that, why wouldn't they brush their teeth like, what? So that was the first thing that happened. And then the second thing that happened was it took Hannah 2 minutes to look around and go, okay, so mom's not talking. She's got something all over her mouth. I'm not sure what that means, but we have to get to school on time. And so she stepped in and she said to her brother and sister, Brady, how about if you get the bowls and the spoons? Zoe, you get the cereal and pour it in everybody's bowl. I'll get the milk and pour the milk. Then they sat down and they ate, and it was very quiet. And I was like moving around the kitchen doing some dishes because I couldn't talk. And then when they were done, they all brought their dishes over to the sink and put them in the dishwasher or in the sink. And Hannah rinsed them off, and off they went. And they finished getting ready. And they would walk by me every once in a while and go, hi. And I would wave and blow them kisses. And they would. And what I learned was this: when I stop talking, their brains light up. When I talk, their brains go to sleep. They learn to rely on my voice to navigate their day, instead of them thinking and learning about how to look around, manage their time, manage their stuff, get themselves organized, do an inventory of what needs to happen next. I disrupted all of that thinking, all of that mental muscle that was being developed in them, all these great habits that they were going to use for the rest of their lives. I was messing up because my mouth was going all the time in an attempt to tell them how to do their life instead of being quiet and letting them actually do their life. And when this happened, they were happier. They were more responsible. They were more organized. They were happier with each other. They were ready to go to bed at the end of the night because their brains were tired. I was energized. I didn't feel resentful. I was in an amazing mood because I had retained the resources so that I could be an emotionally available mother rather than a mother who was going like this all day long to try and make sure everything got done. Does this make sense to anybody else? Is there anybody else out there who thinks that perhaps they might talk a little bit too much, or that they talk at their children a little bit too much, and this might be the problem? Let me see a show of hands. I can't see them, but Nicole will tell me, oh yes, everyone is raising their hands. Good. So because this worked so well for me and it changed our life as a family, I came up with this exercise to teach to the people I was teaching classes to, and I called it Do Nothing, Say Nothing. And here's how it works. We're going to start at the beginning, and we're going to use this little form here to fill out. So on the left-hand side where it says children's behavior, I want you to write down as many of the pesky behaviors your children demonstrate in the course of a day that make you crazy. Now, I know y'all love your children and they're creative and compassionate and loving and funny and brilliant and blah, blah, blah. I get that. But I want you to write down the list where you look at your child one day and you think, if the UPS guy drives up right now, there's a good chance I'm putting you in a box, putting Nana's address on it, and shipping you out of here. I am done. I am finished. That's what I want you to write down. So it could be that you have whiners, you have kids who say no, you have kids who noodle, you have kids who pick on the dog, you have kids who say shut up, you have kids who won't sit still at the table, you have kids who won't get dressed, you have kids who sleep through the alarm clock. I don't care what it is, write it down. Now, as you're writing, I want to share with you that I do not believe that any behavior is intrinsically good or bad, right? I call behaviors that drive parents crazy pesky behaviors. They're not good or bad. They're just on the useless side of life. But we're going to find out why our children keep using these pesky behaviors in just a moment. So take 10 more seconds and write everything down. Do it now. Don't wait. Do it now. The longer the list, the better the results will be. So tell on yourself right now. Okay. And if you want to share in the chat, like do it so that you can all see what the other people are writing, so you can be like, oh, I forgot that one. There are pretty standards that parents share all of the time. So that tells us not much has changed. So here, these are all the pesky behaviors, right? On the other side is what I call the current quote unquote parenting strategies that we use to deal with these pesky behaviors. So think about your general responses to your child's behavior. And Annie, I know you've taken this course before and you're familiar. So and if you have taken the course before, you're going to have to snoop a little bit more because you've cleaned up your act to a certain extent, but there are still certain behaviors that will trigger those parenting strategies that we're trying to identify. So for instance, it could be that you nag, you remind, you lecture, you consequence, you yell, you save, you bribe, you take things away, you threaten, you stop talking to the kids. I don't care what you count. You use the naughty chair. You take stickers away. You add stickers. Whatever it is that you do to deal with that pesky list of behavior. Keep writing. There's a lot of them. All right. When you get done, I want you to look at the list. On the left-hand side, it says the children's behavior. And I want you to take a pen and I want you to draw a little weed right through all those pesky behaviors. Just draw a weed, because that's what this is. This list of behaviors that make you crazy, that bring out the worst in you, are just weeds. They're just weeds. They have a short root system. They're not here for the long haul unless on the right-hand side, if these are weeds, what do you think these parenting strategies are? The fertilizer that keeps these weeds going. This list of all the things, the ineffective parenting strategies we use, are the very thing that keep this list of weeds alive and active. Got it? So if we want this to change, this has to change. Now, here's the other thing. Besides the fact that this list of ineffective parenting strategies, I use the word loosely, is responsible for our children doing more of this every day with more intensity and more determination and more tenacity. Have you ever noticed they're getting better at it? It's not getting better. They're getting better at it. But there is no book ever written that would suggest that an effective parenting strategy includes yelling, screaming, bribing, lecturing, nagging, punishing. None of those suggest. Nobody would buy a book on how to overpower a child and make them feel really bad about themselves as a relevant and reliable source of information for raising human beings. And yet we continue to use those. So why is that? Why is it that we know intuitively and instinctually that what we are doing is not working, that in fact it is making things worse over here, and yet we continue to feed that weed on a daily basis. And it's because we don't know what else to do. And we live in a culture that suggests that when your child is being naughty, that you have to do something. And so you are willing to do anything rather than do nothing. And what I'm suggesting is that doing nothing is doing something. You're not giving in and you are not giving up. You are acting like a rational, thoughtful human being who does not have a plan for how to address a particular behavior. And instead of making things worse, you are going to hit the pause button and you are going to think about what you are doing, why you are doing it, what the impact will be on the relationship with your child, what the impact will be on the relationship the child has with him or herself, and if this is in fact what you want to do. But nobody tells us that. What they tell us in this culture is if you have a child who's being naughty, your job is to address it right now, whether you make things better or worse. The goal is activity. The goal is taking action. The goal is making sure you look at all the people watching you and saying, see, I am doing something about this. I am in charge. When in fact, the only thing you're doing is fertilizing a weed that would go away on its own if it wasn't fed. And what's feeding it is this list of ineffective strategies. Does that make sense? Okay, so the do nothing, say nothing week is about you giving up these ineffective parenting strategies. You are no longer allowed to use them for 7 days. No nagging, no reminding, no lecturing, no counting, no timeouts, no punishing, no consequencing, nothing that has not worked. And when I say worked, I don't mean it worked for 10 minutes and 30 minutes later you were having the same problem. That's not working. That's putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, people. And that will be the relationship you have with your kid. Is that what you want? Is that what you want your kid to say about you at the end of 18 years? This is the relationship? I can sum it up really easily. No, of course not. So those are the things that we're going to stop doing. We're going to stop the nagging and the reminding and the lecturing. And if we have to, we're going to put duct tape over our mouth. And we're going to watch what happens when we are quiet. We are going to watch what happens when the children's brains turn on and they have to think about what is going on in their life because your voice is now non-existent. You are not there navigating the play-by-play action of the day. So the kids have to look around, and this is your chance to assess. What do your kids know how to do that they will do? What happens when your kids are fighting and you don't intervene? What happens if you don't remind the kids to sit down and eat their breakfast? How many days will they go to school without a breakfast before it kicks in that they've got to go pour the cereal? How many kids don't even know where the cereal is because you haven't taught them? How many kids can find and organize all their stuff? Some of the time, all of the time, never the time, because you've never shown them where it is. So this is a week of observation. You are getting facts that you are going to use to create a parenting plan moving forward that's based on the reality of your family rather than the fantasy that you have playing out in your head, which is the kids will never get up with an alarm clock, they will never get dressed, they will never eat, they will never go to bed, they will never turn off the technology, they will never say please and thank you, they will never. You have all these beliefs about what will happen if you are not in control. And I am challenging you to find out if what you think will happen actually happens. And if it does, then we can create a plan for you. But what if you're wrong? What if you've made all these assumptions about what your kids will and will not do, and you've gotten it wrong? That instead of inspiring them to grow, to mature, to take on more responsibilities, you're actually the reason that they're not doing it. Your mouth is interfering with their ability to do all the things that you would like them to do, because that is what I have found happens generally at the end of this 7 days. Now, this does not mean you don't parent. You still parent. You're just giving up the things that are making things worse in the family. And I know that you're all panicking right now. You're all going, we'll never get out of the house on time, and my child will wear their pajamas to school. And some of that is true. Some of your kids will sleep through the alarm clock and they'll go to school in their pajamas, but nothing bad will happen. Some of your kids will forget to eat breakfast 4 days in a row, but nothing bad will happen. Some of your kids will go to school without brushing their teeth. Nothing bad will happen except one of their friends might say, God, you have bad breath, and the kid will start brushing their teeth. If it's not morally or physically dangerous, do not intercede. If you're worried about the long-term outcome, then step in and be the parent that you're supposed to be. But this is a chance for you to hit the pause button on your own mouth and to get some really good information so that we can move forward. Now, if you have questions, start posting them right here. That's why we left 30 minutes at the end of this so that we can address all of them. If you have young kids, it really means being more patient with how helpful you are. So instead of coming in when you see a 2-year-old or 3-year-old fussing with a shirt they're trying to get on or put a sock on or a hat or whatever it is, you give them a moment before you step in and you're helpful. If you have kids who are going to school, it means you're not prompting them the whole time, that you actually allow them to go to school unprepared so that they feel what that's like and they decide for themselves, I don't like this feeling. I'm going to get more organized because that's what I want to do for myself. But if you haven't ever been inconvenienced, if you haven't ever had a hungry tummy, if you haven't ever had a mom say or a dad say, hey, I'm happy to read with you, but not next to you because you haven't brushed your teeth for 3 days or taken a bath for 4 days, and you're a little bit right, your kids can't change. They're stuck. They need to have those experiences with good, honest feedback from a parent in order to go, yeah, this isn't working for me. I want to get up earlier with my alarm clock. I want to set my clothes out the night before. I want to make sure I've given myself time to eat my breakfast. I'm not going to play on the floor with the dog all morning. But that can't happen if you're in the way, right? So imagine what life might look like if you aren't stopping the progress, all right? Powerful exercise. I did it every single year with every class I ever worked with, and I will do it again because I am still exposed to children, some who are 2 and some who are 42, but this exercise works on everyone. So there you go. So the homework is to not only the do nothing, say nothing, but to answer these 3 questions. And it's always going to be the same 3 questions because these are the most powerful ones. This is where all the good info is. As my friend Cindy Pierce would say, these are where the wisdom bombs live. So the first is, what did I learn about myself? What did I learn about the kids? And what am I going to do differently as a result of what I learned? I want you to tell me what you're going to do differently, because what you're trying to do is tap into that intuitive parenting knowledge that you have that you don't use as often as you could to make really well-informed, logical decisions about what to do next with your child. Okay, so part of this is about increasing your confidence to parent with authority, compassion, and a plan. Okay, so let's talk about what you are going to do this week that's kind of proactive, that's now investing in the relationship. And I've written down what I consider and what parents have told me are the 3 most powerful relationship strategies that I teach. So the first is, and I've given you this workshop about some parents believe that without discipline strategies, they'll turn into permissive parents. And this is the result of me saying relationship strategies are going to be far more impactful in creating a cooperative family environment, respectful, responsible, capable, flexible, compassionate, kind, funny. Relationship strategies are what make the world a wonderful place. Discipline strategies don't have anything to do with that. They're about teaching kids discipline. But parents are afraid if they invest in relationship strategies, it means that they're just going to roll over and be permissive. If you have those thoughts, I want you to sniff them out and write them down. The same with the other ones. What are your reactions and ideas about investing in relationship strategies? Let's make sure you don't have some nagging little voice in the back going, oh, this is bullshit. Relationship strategies are crap. They're for the foo-foo age. It's like, okay, but everything happens within a social context. Everything is about relationships for human beings. That's the name of the game. Even to the extent that people try and avoid relationships with other people. It's always about the relationship. That's it. If everything doesn't start and end there, you're not going to see any progress anywhere. So we want to make sure that you have a rock solid relationship with your kids, because that's how you're going to get cooperation, respect, kids who take responsibility, kids who help out, kids who are polite, kids who are kind. All right. So here are the 3 relationship strategies. The first is called identify and anchor. So as we demonstrated before with the pesky behavior, this is what we usually focus on. All the things we want to go away. You're slow, you noodle, you're disrespectful, you're defiant, you're rude, you're sloppy, you're messy, you forget, you're forgetful, you're unorganized. You don't, like, let's just bombard the children with how lousy they are and how many things need to be fixed. That's not working. So we're going to shift it now. It's not praise. It's not, I'm proud of you. It's relationship strategies based on identifying a character trait and anchoring it with an activity. So here are some examples. I really appreciate how flexible you were when we had plans to go to the park, but it started to rain and we ended up at the bowling alley instead. Thank you. Flexible. Oh, that's what flexible means? I did do that. That's right. Day 2. Wow, you were so flexible yesterday when we were coloring and suddenly this happened and the dog ate it and we had to go get the Play-Doh instead. Thanks so much, bud. Really appreciate it. Flexible. I was flexible again. I didn't throw a temper tantrum when we had to put the paints or the colors away and get the Play-Doh out. No, not me. Okay, so imagine what would happen if every day for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, this kid's parent said, flexible. And here's another example of you being flexible. That would be a kid who looked in the mirror and said, I'm a flexible human being. I have all kinds of examples to give you. And wouldn't that kid continue to be flexible? Absolutely, because the kid is continuing to noodle over here because you talk about his noodling every day. So it stands to reason that we can flip this around. Maybe it's that your child showed patience. Wow, you were so patient with Nana today when she told you the same story 3 times. Did you see her face? She so appreciated you sitting with her. Patience, listening to Nana tell the same story 3 times. Patience, sitting with my little brother and teaching him how to build blocks. Patience, waiting for mom to hang up the telephone so she could answer my question. Patience, waiting in the store line instead of touching everything, telling a story to mom. Patient, got it? So I want you to think of 2 to 3 attributes or character traits that your children already embody to a certain extent. And I want you to identify and anchor those the entire week. So you do this per child. And do not roll your eyes at me. I had to do it with 5 kids. So you do the math. That was 15 times a day. I had to figure out how to say, identify and anchor to each one of them. But by the end of the 2 weeks, I had kids who were starting to embody those very character traits. Here's how it morphs into something more powerful. If you have a child who struggles with self-control, that is a word you want to feed that child consistently. Even when they demonstrate self-control for a split second, you want to start fostering and building an attribute or character trait that you think needs a little nurturing. It needs a little bit of help. Instead, what we do is we tend to focus on when they're out of control and we say, look, you're out of control again. You've got to get into control. And the kid's like, what would that look like exactly? Can somebody tell me? You're going to tell them, oh, wow, it took a lot of self-control not to hit your brother over the head when he came over and knocked all your blocks. That must have been a real drag. But you kept your hands to yourself. Nice work. Oh, self-control. It doesn't mean you didn't swoop in really fast and pick the other child up so that the older one couldn't bonk him on the head, but it's a moment. So you see how powerful this can be in helping our children see themselves from the best possible light, and that's what we want. So there's a little bit more of an explanation about why these are so powerful in case you're worried like, gee, that sounds like fluff. Second thing is to ask curious questions. And this is an art form. So unless you do this for a living, unless you're a coach or a coach, because mostly those are the people that ask the best questions, it's gonna feel sticky in your mouth. It's gonna feel awkward. But here's the goal. Pay attention right now. Put whatever, if you're multitasking, stop for just 30 seconds and listen. The point of asking curious questions is so that our children begin to understand themselves and can share with other people who they are, because they have a clear understanding of who they are. Asking curious questions is not about the parent getting information that they can then use to manipulate the children, either from the positive perspective or the negative. The curious questions are not for us. The curious questions are so that our children begin to understand who they are, how they see the world, how they navigate the world, the ways in which they get tripped up, the solutions that they can use moving forward, the things that bring them joy and passion, so that they can construct a life of meaning and satisfaction from 18 to 80. Okay? So we've got to rethink the way we ask questions of children, because generally they're triggered. There's a hidden agenda behind them. We have a motive behind asking the question. And we often ask why questions. And nobody can answer a why question until therapy ends and you have the answer already. So we want to ask what, how, when, where, who questions. And we want to ask them as if we were scientists observing the child and we didn't care what the answer was. It's of no relevance to us. We could care less. We're just curious about how this person is making these decisions so that we can learn about the process they use to navigate the world. Does that make sense? So practice with a peer, practice with a partner, let yourself be sloppy. Don't worry if the kids look at you and go, what? And don't worry if they don't answer you. I know children don't answer questions. That's irrelevant. Your job is to keep asking them to get better at it, so that pretty soon your children are engaged in a dialogue where you are really interested in what they're thinking, rather than you're interested so that you can give them better advice. If you do that, you're going to have 13, 14, 15-year-olds who continue to talk with you because you've created a platform that is safe, that is respectful, that is full of dignity and integrity, okay? So this is no small thing, and we're going to keep going back to curious questions throughout our time together. And then the third, which might seem crazy, but it's to take action, be consistent, and follow through. And in other words, it's say what you mean what you say, and do it. You are building a foundation for trust that is going to last a lifetime. You need to say what you mean. You need to mean what you say. And then you got to put the action behind the words. Because what we do is we threaten kids, we throw all these statements out, nothing ever happens. And what we teach our children is not that we are not reliable, we are not credible, and we can't be trusted with the information. Okay, so before you make these declarations, before you throw out listen, if you guys don't knock it off, we're not going to the park with Johnny and Andrew at 2:00 this afternoon. You don't mean that. So don't say it, because you're not going to follow through. What you're going to say then is, okay, if you guys can show me that you can be good and keep your hands to yourself, then we can go. And the kids are like, oh, so all we have to do is be nice for 5 minutes and we're going to the park. So she didn't really mean what she said. And she's not really going to follow through with us not going to the park. What she means is stop for 5 minutes and then we're going to do what we want to do. So those are 3 things that you're going to do this week to begin to kind of shake up the relationship you have with your kids and create a new foundation for a better, stronger, more satisfying relationship with the kiddos, okay? So you've got a little bit of homework, some exercises to engage in. You should be incredibly tired by day 5. Like, oh my God, this is hard work, because you are going to start using mental muscle in a brand new way. So as much as your kids are going to be kind of confused and tired with these changes, if you're really taking advantage of this time together, you're also going to start to feel like, holy mackerel, this is hard work. No shit, it's hard work. You're raising human beings. This isn't like hit autopilot when they're 4 and dust your hands off and go, dude, done, figured it out. Like, you're just getting started. Like, you have to be ahead of the game, not behind. And right now, most parents, the kids are leading the pack, and you want to change that dynamic. It's time for you to be the leader of the pack so that your children can first learn how to lead themselves and then lead others with dignity, respect, and integrity. All right? That's a lot of information. So everybody take a collective deep breath. And it is 10 o'clock. So we're going to open up to the Q&A. So Nicole, fire away.
Great. We have a 9-year-old who loves to read. First thing she does in the morning, last thing she does at night. The problem is they cannot get her to break free from her books. They can't get her to eat breakfast, start her day. She sneaks her book out at night after lights are out. They're thrilled she loves to read, but she freaks out when we tell her to stop, and it's a daily issue in our home. This also carries over into other behaviors where she can't break herself free from whatever she's focused on.
Okay. So you've got two things. One, you know something about your child, which is when she is interested in something, it takes her full focus, which is lovely. She's going to go from reading to maybe becoming a writer. Maybe she's going to be a scientist. So you don't want that to go away. You want to capitalize on that, and you want to start using it as an asset. That's the first thing. That's a great trait to have. It's underdeveloped. So don't go stomping on it and saying critical things about it. And you can't spend so much time. No, that's exactly what you want. Imagine the kind of scientists you have who get completely enthralled with one cell. Okay. So there's an upside to that. Find the upside to your kids' natural tendencies. The second thing is let them read. Why do you care if they go to school without breakfast, without their clothes, without their teeth brushed? That's how this kid is going to learn to find the mental muscle to be reading, and go, oh God, they look at the clock. Oh, okay, I have to put the book down. I don't want to put the book down, but I'm not going to school in my pajamas again with no food and lousy teeth and my hair sticking straight up. I can't do it. That kid is never going to learn to put the book down if you're worried about making her put the book down. So you're doing exactly the same thing. What does your child do? She gets overly engrossed in reading. What do? I nag, I remind, I lecture, I prompt, I tell her what time it is, I tell her she can't do it anymore, I tell her she's going to be late. How's that working for you? Oh, it's not? Shut up. Be quiet. Let her take the full responsibility of that choice. Your choice is to leave on time. Her choice is to read past the point where she can get ready for school. If she doesn't experience the consequences of that without being in trouble, she is never going to change her behavior. So you're stopping that growth from happening, that change from happening, because you care too much about how the morning should go instead of letting her figure out how it has to go in order for her to read and get dressed and eat breakfast and pack her backpack and get to the car or the bus or the carpool on time. So everybody, your children are at choice, and so are you. So what is your choice? My choice is I am leaving at 7:30, whether you are ready or not. But between here and 6 o'clock, you are at choice to do whatever you want. I have taught you how to get up with an alarm clock, how to get dressed, how to make 3 things for breakfast, how to pack your backpack. You don't need me, so I am stepping out, and then you've got to trust. You've got to trust. Nothing bad will happen. Will they be pissed? Yes, but that's when people change. It's when they're inconvenienced. So let the kids be inconvenienced. All right, give it a try and then let us know how it goes. Next,
and our last question, so please feel free to send in some more questions. Many times we are waiting on our 8-year-old to finish getting ready so we can get out the door. It happens more often on a weekend if we're heading out for lunch, for example. It's not fair to the rest of us who are ready to go. How do you teach time management without nagging, especially if we need to be somewhere on time?
Well, that word fair, you're using the word fair to talk about an 8-year-old? It's not fair that he stops us from getting ready? Okay. You guys think simplest solutions. In the real world, if this kid said to his friends, yeah, I want to go out to lunch with you people. They said, great, we'll come pick you up at 12 o'clock. And they got there and the kid was like, oh yeah, I'm not ready. What would those people do? They would go to lunch without him. So this is a chance for you to say to the kid, listen, it doesn't seem like some days you want to go with us. So here are a couple of options. We can there's this babysitter who's available, and when we can, we're going to just hire her. We could leave you at home alone if it's under an hour, and then you go on your way and you figure out whether this is a kid who really just needs some alone time without his family. There's nothing wrong with that. Just because you want to have family time doesn't mean this kid wants all that family time. Or the kid realizes, wait a minute, I'm missing out. Those people are going without me, but you're not going. You're getting resentful and you're making the kid pay for it, but you're making the choice to stay and wait. Make a different choice. So remember that the first propensity is, if he would change, I would be happy. That's bullshit. That is not true. You can be happy as long as you're thinking, wait a minute, we have an experience with this kid that says on the weekends, he does not want to go out. We do, but he doesn't. So something is going on and we've got to flush it out. So we can either support the fact that this is an introvert who needs a lot of downtime and we're going to make sure he gets it, or he's been holding us hostage and showing us he's got a lot of power to piss the family off. And we're going to take that away from him by going anyway. And then he can decide to join us or not. Does that make sense? So it's a win-win for everybody. Nobody's being punished. Nobody's being forced to do something they don't want to do. There's an invitation, but people are allowed to say no to an invitation. You might want to have lunch and kids trying to tell you, I don't want to visit anymore. I just want to go in my room and be quiet. All right. So try not to take it personally and give that a whirl. Good. Anything else, or is this quiet group?
We've got some more coming in. Let's see. Two similar questions. Do you let the children know that there's a change in parenting, that they're taking a parenting course, things are going to be done differently, or not?
Yes. Okay. So let's go back to do nothing, say nothing. So this is how you introduce this exercise. You go home. Well, you guys are all home, but you find a time and you sit the kids down and you say, you know, we're taking this parenting class because we figured out, like, we yell too much or we nag or reminder, whatever it is that you do repeatedly. And we don't want to do that anymore. So the teacher told us that we have to be quiet this week. So you know how in the morning, and then you play the morning out for them and you do your best you. So if it was me and I was having this conversation with my kids, I would say, and so you know how I start to come in your room even though the alarm clock is going off and you've hit the snooze button, but I think that you should get up now because it takes a long time to get ready for school. And so I come in and I go, don't you think you want to get up now so you have enough time? And then you go in the bathroom and I'm like, oh, don't forget to do blah, 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 blah. And then you come into the kitchen and I go, oh, are you going to have the, and now my kids are like, that is what you do. And you're like, I know. It's very annoying. And I'm treating you like you're 2 instead of like you're 6, 10, or 40. I'm not going to do that anymore. So let's talk about what you know how to do all on your own without me. And I'm going to let you do that this week. Now, if you need help, ask. But most of the time, if I know you can do it, you're going to do it. If I know it's something you can't do, I'm going to do it for you. So I know that I haven't taught you how to make breakfast yet. So I am going to make your breakfast this week, but you're going to get up, you're going to get dressed, you're going to brush your own teeth, you're going to get your blah, 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 you're going to get your blah, blah, blah. It might go really great. You might be so excited that I am not nagging and reminding and blah, blah, blah all week long, and we're going to get along famously. And it could be that you're late a couple days. Could be that you forget your lunch. Could be that you forget your backpack and your homework. It's no big deal. Nobody's in trouble. Nothing bad will happen to you at school. The teachers might be upset, but that's fine. They're teachers. This isn't their first rodeo. So you make sure the kids know that the exercise is about you learning how to be quiet and that the goal is not for them to suffer. So your attitude has to be firm and kind and solidified in, I'm the one that needs to do the changing, not you. You are fine, and now I'm going to give you a chance to step into your own life. It might be great, it might be hard, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the 7 days, we're going to talk about what we learned. Is the house going to be messy? Yes. Are the kids going to be late? Yes. Are some of them going to be crying? Yes. Are some of them going to be wearing the same pajamas to school for 6 days? Yes. It does not matter. What matters is that you are getting good information about what is really going on in your home when you are not trying to control everything. And from that position, you can create a parenting plan that you can actually live for the duration of your children's stay in your home, okay? So if you have any other questions, just write them in the Facebook post if we run out of time today, and I'll make sure that I'm checking that as the week goes through. All right, what else?
Just to piggyback off of that, do you need to let teachers, babysitters, other adults in your inner circle know?
I would wait until you got some sense that they were concerned about it, and then say, we're trying to, and make sure that they know it's a positive. Make sure if you're discussing it, what you're saying is, we want to give our child a chance to take ownership of their life. And if we keep doing things for them, we're jeopardizing their ability to build confidence in their capabilities. And so this week might be a little bit messy, but it's fine. We know what we're doing, and you'll start to see progress and improvement over the coming week. So think about how you're going to have those conversations. Don't throw the kids under the bus. Don't complicate it. Don't tell everybody why you're doing it in the course you're taking, because they'll look at you like, what did she tell you to do? Because it doesn't make sense unless you've listened to all of the reasons why this is such a powerful exercise. All right. So wait until somebody asks, why does John keep coming to school without his backpack? Because really it should be between the teacher and your kid, not you. So there you go. All right, next.
What happens if they don't go to school? My 6-year-old will go on strike. Natural consequences don't seem to apply to him.
So does he not ever like to go to school? Because most kids don't want to stay home, especially if staying home means that you treat them as if they're sick and they stay in bed with no TV, no games, no reading, no special lunch. They're just in their room. If you have to go to work and you can't stay home with them so that they see that staying home is not fun. So you guys, I always think in terms of layers. So the first thing I want to ask myself is this a pattern with this child? Is this a kid who it really has a difficult time every day going to school? And is there something happening at school that is triggering that? And I don't mean people picking on him. I mean, maybe he feels like he's not as smart as everybody in the class, so he's trying to avoid feelings of inadequacy. Or is this a kid who just who's used to getting into power struggles with his parents and is proving like, you can't make me do anything I don't want to. The other thing is to say, okay, great, I'm going to have this conversation with the kid. They're going to say, I'm not going unless you help me. You can say, okay, I'm going to help you. I'm going to pick out the clothes you're going to wear, and you pick out the ugliest ones that they hate. You're going to pick out the food that they eat. You're going to pick out the stuff they won't eat. You say, this is what happens when you say no. I'm going to step in and I'm going to be in charge of your life. Is that what you want? No? Then you step up and be in charge of your life. So that's part of what I want you to do, is start thinking outside of this very narrow, I have a defiant child. He said he wasn't going to go to school. What do I do? It's like, okay, keep thinking. Look at it from every angle. You're the adult. You're supposed to be the expert. You can't just go, my child won't. Now what do I do? I have to. We'll see about consequences. Most consequences are really punishments, and the only ones I teach are natural consequences, which means if the child doesn't go to school, they call the school. So tell them, I'm not going to call and excuse your absence. So do you know the phone number of the school? Here it is. The secretary is going to answer the phone, and you can tell her it's an unexcused absence. They may call the truancy officer. I don't know what they'll do, but I'm not excusing your absence. There's no reason for you not to be going to school. So again, it's about, well, what are you doing to prepare for this? If you know that's what your kid's going to do, what are you doing to get ready to meet all of those contingencies? I don't know. I'm not there. So it's difficult for me to fill in all the blanks. But again, look at, is the kid trying to show you that they feel disempowered in other areas of their life, and this is the one area they can get you? They're clever kids. You have to be smarter than they are. When you have this very linear thinking, you've given up, because their creative genius is everywhere. They're looking at every angle of a situation and thinking about what will get them what they want quickest, fastest, and in the shortest distance. We're complicating it by thinking it's them and they have to stop. Okay. I know, clever little bandits. Next.
Regarding tone of voice, I feel that my tone of voice has changed since having children. Even when I feel like I am calm, my kids tell me I'm yelling. How can I start trying to change this perception, or how can I practice changing my tone?
Okay, that's a great question. First of all, tape yourself when you think you're being reasonable. And if you are, show it to the kids and say, okay, I think this is a reasonable voice. I don't think I'm yelling. I'm certainly not mad at you people. I might be serious, but I'm not upset. So you tell me what my voice should sound like. And then if they're legitimate, you say, okay, can you just remind me, because I don't hear it and it doesn't feel like I'm upset with you guys. But if that's how you're interpreting it, I'm willing to work on it. I do think that we have a sharpness in our voice that we think is going to activate a child to move quicker. And unfortunately, that sharpness becomes a habit that we don't hear anymore. So take a picture of your face when you're talking to your kids and you're intense. Have somebody sneak a picture, have somebody sneak an audio so that you can actually get a real sense when you're not in the moment of what you sound like and what you look like. What we're going for is firm. It's called firm and kind. Firm is respectful to the adult, kind is respectful to the child. But in essence, it's a very flat tone. It doesn't inform the child about your emotional state in the moment. And so it puts you in a very powerful position because the kids are trying to sniff out, like, is she mad? Is she happy? Is she sad? Is she pissed? Like, what is going on? Because they gauge their next interaction with you based on them reading your emotional register. And if that register is flat, it doesn't inform very well. So they're at a loss. And that's what you want. That's when you're really the leader of the pack. All right. So give that a go. Next.
A 5-year-old doesn't want to pick up her toys at the end of the day. If I offer to help, even if she was playing by herself, is that a fertilizer? She will say she doesn't want to put the toys away so that she knows I will help.
Yeah. So you've created a really bad habit. So I'll give you the answer to this one just because it's such an easy one and it works so well and it makes everybody feel better. So I say to the kids, hey, what happens at the end of the day when the toys are out all over the place? So here's me asking curious questions. I'm not going to talk at the kid. I'm going to get the kid to tell me everything I want to know. And the kid goes, I don't know. Do I ever ask you to pick up your toys? Yeah. And then what happens? Well, then I say that you come help me. Yes. I'm not going to help you anymore. They're not my toys. So you have two options. You can pick the toys up and you can play with them the next day, or you can leave them. I'm going to pick them up and I'm going to put them in a safety deposit box until Sunday morning. And on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, you can have all the toys back. So let me say it again. You have two options. You can pick up the toys and then you can have them the next day, or you can leave them on the floor. I will pick them up. I will put them away and you can have them on Sunday morning. Okay, that's the end of that. And then you figure out, I use timers. I never cued my kids on like, okay, guys, it's time to pick up, because they could be in the middle of something. So I gave myself like this 15-minute window. And when I saw the kids were like in between things, I put a certain kind of music on that the kids had picked out. And when they heard the music, we called it a 15-minute blitz. Everybody went through, picked up all the stuff they wanted, put it away. Anything that was left over, I picked up, put it in the safety deposit box, and it was gone. Never had to say a word. So I used music, and then I followed through, and then the kids were at choice. So it was a win-win for everybody. And I figured out very quickly there was too much shit in the house. There was too much crap for them to organize, and they wanted it out anyway. But I kept saying, oh, don't you love these toys? Don't you really want to play with this toy? It was a big mess. So we got rid of most stuff. So give that a whirl. Safety deposit box, as long as you're kind and respectful and you don't make the child the bad guy. Okay.
Can you just clarify? The question is, isn't that a threat to say I'll pick up and just give back toys?
On Sunday? Well, I'm not giving them back tomorrow. I'm going to keep them till I get everything went in. Okay. So Sunday at 9 o'clock in the morning, I would pull down the box. Everybody's crap was in it from the week. There could be my stuff, the kids' stuff, their father's stuff, friends' stuff. I don't care. It's all getting in the box. I'd pull it down. I'd say, here's the box. Everybody take what you want. And then it would go back up. If that night the kids didn't pick up, it went in the safety deposit box for a week. That's not a threat. I'm following through. I told them what I would do. It's reasonable and related. I'm not nagging every single frickin' night. So no, it's not a threat. It's a threat if I don't do it. It's not a punishment if I follow through on something that's reasonable. You're at choice. You can pick the toys up. If you choose not to, I'm at choice. My choice is to make them go away for a week so I don't have to deal with them. If the kid wants them, they know what the option is. So it's a win-win for everybody. At any moment, they could pick up all the toys and put them away. So that's the difference. Nobody's in trouble.
Last question. Can you provide some tips, examples of the do nothing, say nothing exercise with the 3-year-old? I want to work on not being bothered by my yelling 3-year-old and stop turning to nagging parenting strategies to deal with it. Quote, you need to speak quietly. I don't want to be yelled at. Try speaking to me differently, etc.
Oh, no. Yeah, stop that. All you're doing is telling her what makes you crazy. She doesn't have to change. She can talk to you any way she wants to. That's her right. Just because you want to be spoken to with respect doesn't mean you just, well, we're talking about little kids, you guys. Stop trying to make people treat you the way you want. Imagine if you were in an adult relationship. Imagine for a moment. And the adult in your life was speaking to you the way you speak to your children. You would get up and walk out in a heartbeat. You'd look at that person and go, excuse me, I'm not here for your happiness. I have my own gig on the planet. Thank you very much. If you don't like the way I'm speaking to you, you do something about it, right? So if somebody is speaking to me in a manner in which I find offensive, I'm not saying to them, hey, you can't talk to me that way. I just get up and leave. That's it. I'm a choice. Dude, daughter, mother-in-law, husband, coworker, you have a right to talk any way you want to, and I would not dream of infringing on your right, but I also have rights. So I am going to show you how I want to be treated through my actions, not my words. As soon as you take a snarky tone with me, I will get up, I will walk away happily, and when you come back and go, why are you walking away? I look at you and go, why do you think I'm walking away right now? And then the person has to go, oh, my tone of voice? Yes. If you'd like me to stay in the room, I'd be happy to finish this conversation with you. That is how you teach kids where the interaction is. When they have a voice, a tone, a scream, this doesn't apply when they're distressed. This is just when they're trying to get your attention and figure like, how do I get mom? How do I drive mom crazy? You let them do that and you show them what happens when they do it. You walk away and you go peel carrots, you go fold laundry. And the kid is like, wait a minute. How come that's not getting you to talk to me? So when you say, I can't talk to you when you use that voice, please, you're engaging. You've made a connection. The kid's like, she's talking to me again. She's saying the same thing. Here we go. This is the dance. Instead, you're like, I'm going to go do something else. And kids will, on their own merits, begin to change the way they talk. You can see it within days when I work with kids. Suddenly, they're pulling themselves in and saying, Mom? And as soon as they have that voice, you make eye contact. Yes. But you have to model that voice as well. So if you're screeching and yelling and saying, don't talk to me in that tone of voice, you're going to get that tone of voice. Remember that. They're mimicking you. So if you don't like it, the first thing you have to do is look in the mirror. So when you do nothing, say nothing this week, that's one example of where you want to make the shift. But you also want to be empowering this 3-year-old to make more choices. So give choices all day long. The red shoes or the blue shoes. Are you going to walk to the car, jump to the car? Are you going to sit on the right side of the table or the left side of the table? Are you going to, so that you have a child who's engaged in making these small decisions all day? And that's a lot of times what 3-year-olds' brains are doing. Like their 3-year-olds are known as problem solvers. They look for problems and then they want to try and solve the problems. So they make problems so they can solve problems. That's the brain activity. That's the development that's going on. If you give them choices, you're satisfying that need to solve problems because they have to make a choice. So start there, but also watch how much you do for this child that you could be teaching the child to do for himself or herself. Okay. So there's some tips for younger kids. But remember, the child is not the problem ever. They are always trying to give us good information on how to parent them in the best way possible for who they are as human beings in this moment in time. We're the ones that have to keep making the adjustments, all right? So watch that. Okay, what else? I think something else came in.
Siblings. A sibling talks poorly to the other sibling. The little sibling often cries and tattles if the other one is rude.
Yeah, tattling. So you've taught them that you're the referee. So what would happen if you said, oh, I'm sorry. That's all. I'm sorry, your feelings are hurt. Do you want to come peel carrots with me, fold laundry, go pull some weeds, shovel snow? wash the dog, pay some bills, want to do something else? I don't know. But you don't want to be the referee. And there's never one, bullying. We talk about bullying at school, but bullies and victims are created in our homes. So when you referee instead of teaching kids how to get along, you're perpetuating the bully victim syndrome that we see on playgrounds, because you're yelling at the person you think is being mean and you're coddling the person that you think is the victim. And so everybody finds their role quickly in the house. That has to stop. You are not the referee. Siblings have their own relationships. We need to teach them how to get along, not break up the fighting. So if you have siblings, think about how often you're teaching conflict resolution, respectful negotiation, compromise, and cooperation. Or are all you doing is saying, stop fighting, stop yelling at each other, don't treat each other like that, you're lucky to have a brother, we don't speak that way in the family. It's like mixed messages all over the place there. All right.
Would you apply that same,
what?
Would you apply that same to physical, like wrestling or physical fighting?
No blood, no break, no foul in my house. So again, I always educated my kids on what would happen in the real world if I wasn't there. So I said to the kids, hey, if there's no blood, no break, I'm not going to get into it, because siblings have to figure out, what the threshold is for physical wrestling. And if I keep butting in, I'm going to get it wrong. So if there's no blood, no break, no foul. But if there is blood or there is a break, we have to call 911. So I'm going to drive you down to the fire department, and you're going to ask the fireman what happens if we call 911 and how much it costs for the ambulance to come. Okay, this I did on a fluke just because I thought it would be interesting. I can tell you it had a huge impact on the kids, because I heard them when they started to go fisticuffs. One of them would say, it costs $300 for the ambulance to come to our house. Stop pushing me so hard. And the other one would go, oh, sorry. We only have $22 saved up for the ambulance. So for some reason, and this was part of how I know so emphatically that action and real situations are what land for kids. All of this fucking lecturing and moralizing and storytelling is on empty ears. They don't believe any of it. But you take them to a fire department, the fire department looks at them and goes, you know how expensive it is to have the ambulance come all the way up to your house because you couldn't keep your hands to yourself when your brother was teasing you? It's expensive. My kids were like, I want the ambulance here. And so they learned how to rein themselves in. So I think sometimes we complicate parenting because we instead of like, what's the most common sense thing I could do right now? Sometimes pretty creative, off the wall, oftentimes work to really the kids start to get it. So no blood, no break, no foul, but tell them what the rules are, and then step in whenever you feel like it's dangerous. Just go in, stop the action. Don't worry about who did what to whom. Just move it forward and get out of that situation. And then think about it later. Is this a pattern? How often do the kids really escalate? Is there a certain time of day when this happens? Is somebody instigating, or is it mutual? So ask those questions of yourself, and you'll start to get a better sense of what's really going on, rather than, my kids fight. It's like, right? And all kids fight. It's hard to live in the house with somebody who's not exactly like you. So what are you teaching them about getting along? All right. Good. Anything else before we call it a day?
That's a wrap, lady.
All right, everybody, you've got homework. Your brain should be full and tired. You're looking at your family differently. Jump into the Facebook group. I will check every single day. And until then, have a lovely week. Have fun. Enjoy these exercises. Look for the magic in your family, which is already there, but it's so easy to miss. And I will see you back here next Tuesday, same time, same station. Big love, everybody. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.